Hey, so before starting this video off, if you haven't already watched the previous ones, I highly recommend you do. At the moment there's only one other one, so be sure to check out the World at War video if you haven't already. If you do want to just continue watching, a couple of things you should know. I'm doing every Treyarch map that takes less than 12 hours, with one exception, which is Black Ops 3 Nacht. That obviously means no town on BO2, no All of the Dead on Black Ops 1. And this is a challenge I only started a couple months ago on June the 13th. So yeah, I'm trying to do all of these maps in 4 months. That's why there is a timer that you'll be seeing that is a cumulative time across every single map I've played, including fails and completions and everything. Other than that, I hope you enjoy the video. Please be sure to drop a like if you do enjoy this video, and I'll see you later.
How am I getting trapped in...
Starting me off on Black Ops 1 is my all-time favorite zombies map for high rounds, Kino Der Toten, Black Ops 1. And the reason this gets my #1 spot, really, is because there's just so many different ways of playing high rounds on this map. For if you're a casual, maybe just getting started with actually doing high rounds, or even just going out doing trade strat on this map like a madman. There is a strategy for everybody, regardless of your skill level. But anyway, let's get into how I played this map. So I first started off in the first room, obviously, and I got the M14 and stayed in the first room till about round 5. I then went into the MPL room and bought the MPL and stayed in there until the next dog round. And after this, I moved in the opposite direction up the staircase in spawn and opened that door just to find the mystery box there. And at this point, I got insanely lucky, managing to get the ray gun out of just the first couple of box hits. Oh no. I'm really glad I played this first room mod at some point. And this would end up helping me out a lot during the early rounds when I still needed to get the thunder gun because I wasn't so lucky getting it. But anyway, I would keep hitting the box until it moved, getting a pretty nice little early clutch really here. Then after I'd moved the box, I would go all the way over to power, switch the power on, and then go back in the MPL room with the door to the alley closed. Now, unfortunately at this point, I'd noticed that the box moved all the way over to the boiler room. Now, this is a little bit of a problem, and if you're doing a very high round like 200 plus, you actually want to restart if this happens and you don't get the thunder gun, let's say, within your first few fire sales. The reason for this is because it actually impacts the strategy you're going to run quite a bit, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But anyway, by this point I'm on round 19, I get my last fire sale here, and I'm just thinking I'm not getting the thunder gun anytime soon, so I actually end up having to open up the door to the boiler room in order to hit the box again and try and get the thunder gun. With no luck in getting the thunder gun from the boiler box, the box then moved to stage. I had no luck there either, and then it actually moved into spawn. Now, for those of you who don't know, when you go back into the spawn room after you switch the power on, you will actually activate Nova spawns in the spawn room. This is why you might hear people say that they're playing like no Novas on Kino or with Novas. Because although they're activated in the spawn room, the MPL is a direct spawn zone connected to the spawn room, which means you will get Nova crawlers spawn in from the spawn room. And since my box went into the spawn room, that meant I had to activate the Nova crawlers in order to get my thunder gun from the box. Luckily though, within a few hits of the box in spawn, I managed to get the thunder gun and I was finally set up. However, a couple of minutes after I got the thunder gun from the box, one of my friends actually mentioned to me that I could have hit the box in the spawn room without activating Novas. And the way you can do this is by going into the PM63 room and then going into spawn that way whilst hugging the right hand side of the wall the entire time. Then once you've made your way to the box, you can edge yourself very slowly closer to the box until you get the prompt to hit the mystery box. But to be honest, I didn't really care too much because I had full intention of playing with Novas in my game anyway. This is because if you want to play no Novas, as you can't go back into the spawn room, you can't link the teleporter to activate Pack-a-Punch. So that means when you play no Novas, you're also playing no Pack-a-Punch. And I've got to be honest, I would just prefer to have Pack-a-Punch for that extra safety. I also had the crossbow, so that would be extra safety as well as the Thundergun. So from rounds about 30 to about round 45 to 50, the strategy would be as follows. I would switch the fire trap on when it was ready, and then I would do a half horde of the zombies, shooting them with the Thundergun, and then switch the fire trap back on when it's ready. Then from about round 45 to 50, my ammo would be running a little bit lower, so I would start full hoarding the zombies in order to conserve my ammo. Then from about round 60 to 64, you actually just can't keep doing this strategy. And the reason for it is because you would just keep running out of ammo. And so from about 60 to 65 onwards, I would start running triple trap. This consists of starting in the fire trap room and switching the fire trap on. Then once the fire trap is finished, you would then get the horde up in the room and either shoot a Thundergun shot if you're playing with Novas. If you're playing no Novas, you would potentially try and force out, but if you're not comfortable with it, you can just horde up the zombies in the fire trap room and then leave it. Then once you've left the fire trap room, you want to head to the left and switch the trap on at the bottom of the staircase, and then immediately head all the way over to the right hand side just outside of the dressing room. Then after a few seconds of being there, you want to switch the trap on, and then a couple seconds later you want to immediately sprint back up the stairs which you came down, and then go straight back into the fire trap room. You will then wait for the fire trap to come back on, and then you will switch it on and then stay in the fire trap and rinse and repeat the strategy. Remember when I said you wanted the boiler door closed? Well, the reason for it is because of triple trap, and if you have the boiler door closed, you will actually be running the strategy at about 1 to 1.5 seconds per horde faster than if you have it open. And this is because after you activate the first electric trap, as you're running onto the stage, the zombies have a chance to spawn all the way up in the boiler room, which is miles away, and there's no trap switch there to kill them. So if you do have the opportunity to, be sure to keep the boiler door closed when you play Kino. It will just speed up your game, and there's absolutely no repercussions to having it closed. Well, except for getting double tap if you really want to, but I don't see a point in having double tap on this map, to be honest. But after running this strategy for about 30 rounds, I would end the night on round 91, and this is because at this point in time, I'd been up for a long time. I think the stream time was about 14 to 15 hours, because I had immediately started this game up after my World at War Riese game. Unfortunately though, I couldn't really get to sleep, and I was back on just a couple hours later, and within just a couple of minutes of starting my stream back up, I end up taking it down on round 91. That's fucking tough, Sunder. Oh boy. Thankfully though, I did have monkeys, so I threw a monkey and ran immediately to Juggernog. I also then went around the map and got my other two perks, Mule Kick and Speed Cola, and then went straight back into the fire trap room. And so for the next 9 rounds, I've focused up, managed to blast my way through and get to round 100 in 8 hours and 8 minutes and 30 seconds total game time. Another 100. Let's fucking go. Now, there's no denying that that early ray gun on Kino definitely helped me out in the early game. So the question was, could I get as lucky on 5 as I got on Kino? The answer is no. No, not at all. It was just unbelievably no.
Yeah, use fast ray. Why aren't you using fast ray?
For them zombies, man, they said nah, fuck that.
Those zombies just,
Hang on.
they just fucked right off.
What's going on?
Bro, they do not want smoke right now.
They do not want the trap.
And when I tell you that this 5 game was the unluckiest game of zombies I've ever played to round 100, I absolutely mean it with every fiber of my being. This was a horrible RNG game for me in every single part of the game that has RNG. Everything that has RNG absolutely screwed me over here. So let's get into how I played this map and what actually happened. But before I fully get into it, I want to just talk about the kind of stigma around this map. A lot of people think that 5 is one of the harder maps, or like one of the hardest maps, which I've got to be honest, isn't really the case. To be fair, I didn't do a great job in this 100, but I would have struggled a lot more if it was. And I can understand why it might be considered one of the hardest maps because of all the long corridors and stuff and not a lot of space to move. But once you understand how the map works and how you can actually manipulate spawns, it becomes very easy. So to start off, what I would do is I would stay in the spawn room till about round 3, 4 or 5, and then I would open the first door. Then I would get the MPL off the wall, and then I would stay just outside of the elevator area until about round 6 or 7, depending on my point situation. Then I would head down the elevator and go all the way down through the war room elevator, and then go into the labs, open the first door on the left and grab the bowie knife and the trap switch. From here I would then kill a few more zombies with the bowie knife down in the labs, probably ending the round, and then I would teleport and it would either send me up to the spawn room or the war room. Obviously making sure you take the main teleporter, because that one is guaranteed to take you to one of those other 2 locations. The other ones I think have a chance to, or they'll just teleport you somewhere around the labs. But anyway, if I was teleported into spawn, I would call up the elevator, I would buy speed cola, and then chill around the elevator area until the end of the round. If I went back into the war room, however, I would immediately buy Juggernog and then just keep knifing the zombies with the bowie knife. And honestly, the bowie knife on 5 is just a really great early and kind of late game weapon, because it can kill the doctor pretty quickly, and this is because the doctor's health doesn't really scale probably past like round 30 or 40. I'm not too sure, I just know it doesn't scale up to like round 100. So if you are unfortunate enough to have your weapon taken away from you, you can always get it back just by hitting the doctor with the bowie knife. And something you'll always see me do at the beginning of a 5 game is when it's a doctor round, I'll let him take my weapon and then kill him with the bowie knife close to a box location, and then use the fire sale he drops in order to hit the box instead of actually hitting the box without the fire sale. There are a couple of reasons for this, the first one being points. In the early game you don't really have too many points on 5. The second one is if you hit the box normally without a fire sale, you have a chance to move the box, which will then activate fire sales. But if you hit the box on a fire sale, they don't count towards box hits of that box location, so you don't have to worry about moving the box on a fire sale. And if you're fortunate enough to get everything you need out of a few fire sales at the beginning of the game, you then don't have to worry about fire sales in the drop cycle, allowing you to get more insta-kills, max ammos, etc. So from these fire sales, I'd be looking to try and get monkeys, a ray gun and a crossbow all from the box. This is because, as most of you know, the Winter's Howl is just complete trash on 5 really. It doesn't hold a candle to the ray gun at least. So for the first 3 doctor rounds, I'd be using them in order to get a fire sale and try and get my weapons just like that. However, this didn't really work out, and on round 16, I just had to start hitting the box normally. However, in this game, the best thing I could get was a Winter's Howl, and so the game didn't last very long with me taking it down around 24 and quitting the game, as I didn't get anything from the box that I needed at all. Yeah, I'm dead, yeah. Dude, what am I meant to do? So on to my second game now, and by round 17 I've already had my 3 fire sales, and I have absolutely nothing to show for it. So once again, I start hitting the box normally, traveling around the map to where the box location is, and eventually by about round 20 I managed to get the crossbow. Now at this point I start saving zombies in order to hit the box because my box luck has just been terrible, and finally by 24 I eventually get monkeys from the box. However, I hit the box about 30 to 40 times on this round and I still don't manage to get the ray gun. So I just keep playing on, hitting the box and using any weapons I get in order to make some points to try again at about round 28, 29 or 30. Very unfortunately for me though, I once again hit the box 40, 50 times and I still don't manage to get the ray gun. However, I do manage to get the Winter's Howl, which is okay, I guess. So I ended up taking it, pack-a-punching it, and using it all the way until about round 45. So as you can see, the early game on 5 was not very kind to me at all. It fucked me over an insane amount, and I was not very happy. But how I would play the early rounds was I would keep both of the barricades in the war room closed, and then I would basically do a little train or some cutbacks close to the staircase and around that mule kick area in order to get the horde of zombies. And then what I would do is I would go to the back by claymores or the back by the window and the barricade and just shoot my Mustang and Sally at the horde and also the Winter's Howl. This was able to work by itself all the way until about round 40, at which point I needed to start using the claymores that I had kept stacking up against the Juggernaut machine. And as I said, at about round 45 I'd used up all my claymores and it was about time to run the trap strategy on the map. So remember how earlier on I said about how 5 isn't actually one of the harder maps on Black Ops 1? Well, this next step is absolutely crucial in order for that to be true. Because what I'm about to do here is change where the zombies spawn in from in the windows in the first room. Because for those of you who are unaware of this, only 4 barriers in the first room can be active at any one time, meaning 2 of the barriers are always inactive. And there is actually a way to control which windows are active and which windows are inactive in order to get a nice and easy horde up in the first room. So there are actually 2 ways in order to manipulate these windows. The first way is by going to Pack-a-Punch. Now, for whatever reason, just going through to the Pack-a-Punch area after either a doctor round where you kill him before he can take a weapon from you, or by activating all the switches, if you just take that teleporter through to the Pack-a-Punch room, it will change the spawns in the first room. People don't actually do this to set windows though. What will happen is on round 162 at the end of it, they will save a few zombies and Pack-a-Punch in order to be ready for insta-kill rounds, and then they will have to set windows again. So what people will actually do is the second way of setting windows, which is by using the war room elevator. Now again, for whatever reason, I've got absolutely no idea, whenever you take or call up the war room elevator, it will change the spawns in the first room. So this just means every time that elevator moves, one of the spawns or multiple of the spawns in the spawn room will have changed. So what I would do is I would go down the spawn room elevator, that one doesn't affect anything, then either call up or take the war room elevator. If I was calling it up, I would train the zombies and then go back up the stairs and back up the elevator and then kill a horde of zombies in order to see if any of the spawns had changed. However, if I went down the elevator, I would go through to the left because for some reason there's about 3 zombies in front of me trying to block me, and then jump through the window and then go into the main teleporter and then hope I get teleported into spawn. If I do, I would then see if any are coming through the right barrier. But if I got teleported into the war room area, I would go up the stairs and take the elevator up there, back into the spawn room, and then kill another horde and see if the spawns have changed. And for the strategy I was running, there are 2 spawns that you want to deactivate, which is the window opposite of the quick revive machine all the way at the end of the hallway, and then the window just to the right of that window. However, I wasn't very lucky in this game, if you recall, and after about 40, 50, maybe even 60 tries of trying to set the windows to this precise spawn locations, I basically gave up and settled on just this one particular barrier, the one at the end of the hallway at the opposite end of quick revive, because that's the only one you 100% need deactivated. Because what I would do instead is after every horde I killed, you can get away with the other window being active as long as you put either 1 or 2 boards on the barrier in order to delay the spawns of the zombies. And so this is basically how I had my spawn set up for the remainder of the game all the way up until round 100. Now in order to actually run this strategy, I would switch between 2 different strategies actually. The first one being 2.5 and the other one being 2.0. Now the names of the strategies actually have some significance. 2.5 meaning you kill 2 hordes and an extra half a horde with one of the traps, and 2.0 meaning you get 2 hordes worth of kills with each trap you use. So I'll start off with the easier version of the strategy, which is 2.0, and explain how I would run this. So I would start off by putting a board on the barrier that I wanted inactive but couldn't get inactive. Then I would head back to the doorway by the M14 and stay there for a few seconds. I would then begin to make my way slowly towards the left hand side and through the doorway to the Olympia, and I would also try and stall at that doorway in order to get all the zombies nice and close together so that none of them would try and come through the other doorway to block me off. I would then switch the trap on by the quick revive machine and then stand relatively close to the other side of the trap to make sure that none of the zombies tried to path through the other doorway. Sometimes I would get the occasional zombie that would path through the doorway, so I just had to kind of lead them around a little bit in that tight area, but overall it was okay. And then for the second horde, I would repeat the entire process, but instead of switching the trap on, I would jump through the trap, killing the entire horde. Now, if you remember, there's actually 2 traps that you use on the top floor of 5. And the second one is just across the other side of the room, opposite of the quick revive machine. And so, in order to use this trap, you would do the exact same horde up, but instead of switching the trap on by the quick revive machine, because obviously it would be cooling down at this point, you would go all the way across, you would take the zombies with you, and then activate the trap on the other side, going through the trap. So this means you'll be by the MPL as the zombies are running through the trap you just switched on. You would then repeat this, but jump through the trap because it's still going to be on, and the zombies will come through the trap afterwards. And now there is only one slight difference you would actually do if you wanted to run 2.5 instead of 2.0. So after you kill the second horde with the trap through to the quick revive machine, you would then stand back at the doorway instead of going all the way over to the M14. This is because instead of hoarding up like normal, you're actually going to take the zombies that spawn next to the quick revive machine, those 2 windows right there, you're going to be taking those zombies through the trap the other side than what you normally would. And then as you see zombies come through the regular doorway that you would take them through, you would lead those up towards the complete opposite side of the quick revive machine in order to delay them a little bit, and then as the quick revive machine trap switches off, you would then sprint through all the way to speed cola, because you can sometimes get trapped in that little doorway. So you just want to make sure that you're there as soon as you can be. And since at this point you would normally have the full horde, but this time you don't, in order to actually get the full horde, I would recommend hugging the wall opposite the speed cola machine and just going closer to the elevator just until you see that you have all the zombies with you. Then once you do, take them through the trap like normal and rinse and repeat the strategy. So like I said, I would run the 2.5 strategy up until about round 80, and then I would run 2.0 from all the way from 80 to round 100. However, this wasn't without a few blunders along the way, as I took my first down actually on round 46. I believe as I was starting the horde off, I got cut off by a bunch of zombies, and one zombie came out of absolutely nowhere from the doorway opposite end of the quick revive machine, and it completely caught me off guard, and I ended up going down. And that wasn't the only down I took in this game. My second down happened on round 89, where I ended up getting distracted. I looked away from my screen for just a split second. The zombies came a little bit faster than I thought they would, and I just ended up going down because of my own carelessness. And then very close to round 100 now, on round 97, I take a third down, where I think the zombies aren't coming as fast as they are, and I think I've got more space than I had, and I get trapped by the invisible quick revive machine on my right, and I believe like a chair or something on my left, and I just get stuck, and yeah, I'm just completely dead. Thankfully, the recovery on this map isn't terrible, especially when you have a lot of safety items like the crossbow and monkey bombs. So what I would do in order to recover, I would either throw a monkey or shoot a crossbow shot in order to give myself some time to recover. I would then head over to the elevator, go down the elevator, grab Juggernog, Mule Kick, Speed Cola, and Quick Revive again if Quick Revive was available, and then go back to running the strategy again as normal. And after a staggering 8 hours and 58 minutes, I managed to get to round 100 on 5. And like I said, this map isn't that difficult if you know what you're doing and how to play it, because this was only my second attempt, and technically it was my first attempt past setup, meaning, you know, actually running the strategy. However, I did take 3 very stupid downs. And let's not forget, of course, about the series of bad RNG I had in this game, and then to top it all off, I ended up getting 7 5-rounder dock rounds in a row. And for those of you who don't know what that means, basically the doctor round is classed as a special round, and it is shorter than the zombie rounds later on in the game. And so the more of these rounds you have, the faster your game is going to be. And from round 61 to 96, I only got straight 5-rounder dock rounds instead of getting maybe a few 4-rounders in there alongside the 5-rounders. And it just added the little cherry on top of how bad my RNG was this game, basically adding on an extra 15 minutes of game time. So as you can imagine with this bad RNG, I wasn't particularly looking forward to going from a map that has very little RNG in it to a map that requires a lot of RNG, since I'm going to be doing trades a lot, and the map of course is Black Ops 1 Ascension.
Oh, dude, I just killed myself. I'm so fucking retarded.
So going over to BO1 Ascension, I'd be starting the game off in pretty much the same way I always started them off. I would grab the M14 and then be leaving the first room on about round 4 or 5, leaving at the top of the stairs. However, something I did a little bit differently is I would grab Quick Revive twice, down myself twice, and then grab Quick Revive for the 3rd time. And the reason I would do this is so that it would lock QR. So let me just explain what locking QR means and what locking perks in general does, because it's a strategy used by a lot of high round players who play Ascension. So after you buy Quick Revive for the 3rd time, the perk machine actually disappears, and what this basically means is on monkey rounds, the monkeys won't be able to attack the perk machine because it just isn't there. And so on later rounds, when I have a bunch of other perks, I know I don't have to worry about protecting Quick Revive because the perk isn't on the map anymore and the monkeys just cannot take it. And this is also why you might see some people playing with something called Locked Jug. Now, although you can't get the perk machine to disappear on the map, you can protect it just by not opening any doors to the perk machine and trying to get Juggernog as a free perk from the monkeys. And in order to get a free perk from the monkeys, you have to make sure that they don't touch any of your perk machines that are active. And so in order to do this, at the start of the game, as soon as I could, I would buy PhD, and then when a monkey round comes around, I would just have to protect PhD because obviously I have locked QR. And also with PhD, you can literally just flop the monkeys to death. And so after killing all 6 monkeys, I would pick up the perk bottle, and unfortunately, I got Speed Cola. However, this wasn't the end of the world, because what I would do is I would just play until the next monkey round. And what you might not know is if there is only one available perk for the monkeys at the given time when they spawn in, they will go between you and the perk. So 3 monkeys going for the perk and 3 monkeys going after you. So on the next monkey round, I would kill the 3 monkeys going after PhD, and then I would kill 2 of the monkeys going after me, keeping 1 on me. I would then open up the map to Mule Kick and buy Mule Kick, and then kill the last monkey, because he hasn't been able to attack any of the perks. And now at this point, it's a 50-50 chance on if you get Juggernog or Stamina. And to my surprise, I actually managed to get Juggernog as my 5th perk, which was awesome. Now, by this point in the game, I should mention, I did manage to get the ray gun out of like my first couple of hits on the box, which just made the early game way easier for me. And since I had everything I needed, I just needed to activate Pack-a-Punch and get the Thunder Gun from the box. And just when I thought my bad luck was over with being able to get Juggernog as my 5th perk and having the ray gun out of the first few box hits as well as Gersh's, the game throws the reality back in my face with making me hit the box 70 additional times in order to get the Thunder Gun for the first time out of the box. Oh, I did fix my box. Oh, there we go. More like it, boys. However, now that I was on round 30 and I was finally set up, I could start playing the low round strategy. Now, some people would consider playing the low round strategy at power, but I wasn't very comfortable and I'm not very good at actually playing power, so what I did instead is I ran the spawn strategy. But in order to speed things up just a little bit, from rounds 30 to about rounds 45 to 50, I would do half hordes. This is where you just get about half of the horde of the zombies and shoot them with the Thunder Gun, and then do the same with the other half a horde, and it just makes the early game just a little bit faster than what it normally would be, only by about maybe 5 minutes. But it's still worth doing because you have the ammo for it, so there's no reason not to do it really. Then from rounds 50 to 60, I would do a full horde in the spawn room until I ran out of claymores, or until I just used up all my claymores. And then at round 60, I would switch to running the full horde strategy at Pack-a-Punch. Something I do notice when it comes to Ascension a lot of the time is that people will be kind of scared of monkey rounds because they don't really know how to deal with them. But in reality, monkey rounds are really easy to deal with as long as you save a few Thunder Gun shots. So whenever I was close to the end of a round and I knew I had monkeys the following round, or a potential for monkeys the following round, I would make sure to save some Thunder Gun shots to deal with them. And what I would do is start at the Speed Cola trap, switch it on, then kill any monkeys that were trying to go up to Mule Kick or Speed Cola, that wouldn't be able to run through the fire trap. Then once I'd killed those, I would drop down and run over to PhD and see if any monkeys were going after PhD. And if they were, I would just shoot them with the thunder gun. If they weren't, I would run over to Stamina because they were most likely over there. And then once I got over to Stamina, I was obviously shoot the monkeys, and then I would have protected all of my perks very easily. And again, something to note, if you are struggling on monkey rounds, they will only ever go to 2 perks at any one time. So if I saw, for example, some monkeys going towards Speed Cola, then I knew that they would only be going to one other perk. So if I saw them going to PhD as well, I knew I didn't have to worry about Stamina. Going back to the strategy now, and honestly, there's no real issues when you run a pack-a-punch strategy. You just gotta be mindful of maybe some zombies getting stuck in the barrier, or just some zombies maybe being a little later than you would have wanted them to be. However, on round 67, I ran out of ammo for the first time in the game, making me do my very first trade of the entire game. To my surprise though, the trade wouldn't be very long, as within 2 hits of the mystery box after getting rid of my thunder gun, I managed to get the thunder gun back again. I hate this game. I knew I should have hit the fucking box. Okay. And honestly, this was a sign of great things to come, because during my game, I got probably some of the best luck I've ever had during an Ascension game. And although I didn't get an extra monkey round in the 90s, my trade luck was incredible, having to do an average of 14.9 hits for the thunder gun back out of the box across 10 different trades, as well as my drop luck being absolutely one of the best drop looks I've ever had in a game of zombies, I believe. With at some point I was going for a trade of the thunder gun because I just ran out of ammo. I ended up getting Gersh's back because I was in the middle of a Gersh trade as well, and after I threw just a singular Gersh, I ended up getting a max ammo before I even had to trade out my thunder gun, which I was about to do. It was absolutely incredible. Poop of the Dead's a bit shit. Pardon the pun.
Honestly, it's so. Well, you play it once or twice and you.
Wait, boys,
Oh,
wait.
Are you gonna actually make this?
Wait. Mate, I'm gassed as fuck.
Fuck off.
Mate.
You lucky bastard.
Dude, that is a fucking pro. Unfortunately, I did take 1 down in this game, which is the only down I would have been able to take, because I tried getting through a gap I probably shouldn't have risked trying to get through. But I quickly learned from my mistake, and it didn't happen again during the game. And that was honestly pretty much it for BO1 Ascension. It was a really fun game to play. Not bad, honestly. Not bad at all. 7-17-24. Finish it? No, bro. I'm fucking quitting. I'm just alt F4 now. Shangri-la is definitely one of the maps I've struggled on in the past, and this is because not only is there no real open area to train, there's also no traps on the map, which means the only way to kill the zombies in the higher rounds is to use the wonder weapon on the map. So before I even start the map off really, when I spawn in, I would look for the box location to be by Mule Kick. Then once I'd seen that the box location was by Mule Kick, I would then stay in spawn until about round 4, and then make my way to the box location at the end of round 4. Also in the spawn room, I would flip any drop that wasn't a double points into a double points, and this was obviously to get more points, but also if you flip a drop and you pick that drop up from the monkey, the monkeys will then run after you, and if you kill that monkey without it touching you, you will get 500 points normally. But because I would have a double points on, it means that the monkey would actually give me 1,000 points instead of 500, allowing me to get an insane amount of points at the very beginning of the game. Now, normally what I would do when I play Shangri-La is I would actually restart for the baby gun out of the first box. But this time, since I do just want to get the map done as quickly as possible, and I'm not going for anything like around 200, it wasn't particularly necessary. So I decided to play without first box, and let me tell you, this is a mistake I will never make again when playing this map. Even if it takes like 2 to 3 hours, I will always, from here on out, restart for the baby gun out of the first box on Shang. So unfortunately, I didn't really get anything out of the first box on Shang. So once I'd moved the box, I would then go into power and switch the power on. Then at the end of the round, I would go up to wherever Juggernog was at, and I would buy Juggernog. I would also buy Quick Revive, and then also Mule Kick. Now, if you play for first box on Shang, you don't really need Mule Kick, but since I wasn't playing first box this time round, I thought I may as well get a ray gun to help me out with the early rounds. And on round 11, I was lucky enough to get one. I then went ahead and bought PhD, and I would hit the box on fire sales in order to try and get the baby gun. Unfortunately, by about round 15, I hadn't got the baby gun out of the box from fire sales, so I looked for the box and it was at power. I hit the box at power, and within a few hits, I managed to get the baby gun. So on round 17, I had every weapon I needed, and now all I needed to do was Pack-a-Punch. So I looked for the stone around the map, activated Pack-a-Punch, and then went ahead and got my Mustang and Sally, my upgraded ray gun, and my upgraded baby gun. Now, there was only one more thing I needed, which was all my perks. And in order to get them, I would play by the Semtex, and I would use the ray gun in order to kill the zombies so that I wouldn't risk running over the drop when I was using the baby gun. Then when I got a max ammo, I would wait behind the drop, killing any zombies that tried to attack me, and wait until the monkey came to pick up the drop, and then I would follow the monkey and see the pattern of when the perk bottle shows up after what drop. And once I knew that, on the following cycle, I would wait until it got to the drop before the perk bottle, and then be ready to shoot for when it immediately switches to the perk bottle so that I could get an extra perk. I would then do this until I got double tap, stamina up, and speed cola, as Deadshot isn't really necessary. And I actually got really lucky getting these perks because I got double tap, stamina up, and speed cola, and I didn't end up getting Deadshot, which was just really nice to get. And after that, I was now 100% fully set up, and it was just a case of playing the early rounds. And now, the early rounds for me are probably the hardest part about Shangri-La, and this is because the spawn rate up until about round 40 isn't really fast enough to be able to do like a hold up strategy, so you end up having to camp and sometimes rely on drops to actually just drop. So sometimes you could be in like the mid to high 20s and you'd be really low on ammo just praying for that max to drop. However, I will say if I got super low on ammo, I would try and do like a very slow hold up. The spawns would be completely messed up, but that was kind of the best option I had. But I would generally just be camping in the M16 room, going back and forth between the perk and the stairs leading to power, leaving the barricade closed towards power so that I could camp around the stairs when the fire zombie came, and I blew him up so that the zombies would just walk into it. And also for faster spawns and for it to just be a safer game in general, because zombies wouldn't be able to spawn from behind me. So I would be camping in the M16 room until about round 55, at which I would start running the high round strategy. So at the beginning of rounds, I would start off in the M16 room, and then I would do 2 cutbacks in the left corner of the AK room and 1 cutback in the right corner of the AK room. And then I would go back into the Semtex room, throw a Semtex grenade down on the ground, and then shoot them with the baby gun in order to kill the full horde. And I would keep doing this until I got all my drops. And once I made sure I had all my drops, I would then run the alternate version of the strategy, which was just slightly faster. So instead of doing 2 cutbacks at the waterfall, I would only do 1, and then on the way back around, instead of going and doing the cutback, I would go to the right, throw the Semtex grenade down at the bottom of the stairs, run slightly up the stairs, and shoot the horde from there. Now, this is quite a bit riskier because instead of getting to the M16 room immediately, you're a little bit delayed, which means the spawns can sometimes be a little messed up. So that meant I had to be quite alert for those spawns, and all in all, it went pretty good until about round 76. And this is unfortunately where I took my first down. I tried to get through a gap where I just was never going to make it. I don't really know what I was thinking. I could have easily avoided the down by going to the right, but it was fine. All I had to do was throw a monkey and then run back into spawn, grab quick revive, and run across the mud in order to get Juggernaut. And then the other 2 perks I picked up was PhD for the Semtex grenades and Stamina up because I would probably end up having to do trades in this game. And that's exactly what happened on round 89. I had to do my first trade of the game. And the first trade was going pretty well, considering I hadn't really practiced trades in quite some time on this map. I was also running the fast trade strategy at the power location, where you do a very tight cutback towards the box location. But this didn't last very long at all, because I ended up taking a second down during this trade. And part of the reason was because I got stuck on these little pallets that were on the ground. Also, just a little after recording kind of thing. I'd actually taken my third down trading. My second down was on round 80, and that's when I decided to stop running M16 V3 just altogether because I was just having a terrible time doing it. So I ran the easy strategy for the rest of the game. But anyway, after my third down, I got all my perks again. But obviously I can't get quick revive anymore because the quick revive machine is no longer on the map. So I ended up getting speed cola. And yeah, I know you can get perks from the monkeys, but I'm pretty sure on BO1 you actually can't get quick revive from like any monkeys on any map like Ascension or Shangri-la once the perk machine has gone. Not to mention, for those of you who don't know, on Black Ops 1, it is incredibly hard to get the monkeys to flip drops later on in the game. This is because in order to flip drops, you need to first get the full horde together, and then you have to kill them with the ray gun while separating the horde into kind of 2 different parts. The first part, it will have like the first 12 zombies or so, and then in the second half, you will have to hopefully try and get a drop and then kill the rest of the zombies in the second half. And you have to wait about like 2 or 3 seconds between killing the first half of the horde and the second half of the horde. And you also have to hope that you don't get a drop until the second half of the horde, because if you do get a drop in the first half of the horde, the monkeys will not come to try and steal your drop, which means you can't flip it into a max ammo. It is literally only the second half of the horde in which you can potentially flip a drop into a max ammo, but again, it is very, very difficult on BO1 Shang in order to do this in the higher rounds. And this also brings me back to the reason of why I will always play with first box on this map from here on out. So when you play with the first box on Shang, you're essentially taking out a drop from the drop cycle, which is fire sales. Because if you don't move the box, you won't get fire sales on the map. So this means, for the early game and late game, you can have just 4 drops in your drop cycle. And this is also because when you run just regular M16, you don't get any carpenters because there are only 4 active barrier spawns at the time. And there are 2 active barrier spawns in the M16 room and 2 active barrier spawns in the Semtex room. Now, even if there were like 3 barriers in both that were active, you could still run no carpenters. It's just every single loop you would have to put a board on 2 of the barriers, for example, because as soon as there are 5 barriers that do not have a single board on them, you will then be activating carpenters. So for example, if you were to accidentally force spawns in the AK room and they came out of the barrier on the right, in order to get it back to being at no carpenters again, all you would have to do is put one single board on the barrier, and then you won't be getting a carpenter again. But obviously you would have to do this every time one of the barriers breached, for example. But what's so great about this is not only for the higher rounds, but the early rounds as well, you can basically get yourself to what's known as a perfect drop cycle. Now, there are only a few maps where this is really worth doing, but Shangri-la, it is 100% worth doing. So, a perfect drop cycle is where you get a double points, insta-kill, nuke, and max ammo every single round. And it's not like a luck-based thing. When you're on a perfect drop cycle, you are guaranteed to get these drops every single round. And one of the best things about Shangri-la is that you don't particularly have to get lucky to be on a perfect drop cycle on Shang. Because let's say, for example, you're constantly getting 4 drops per round in like the 60s. All you have to do is breach spawns so that you're getting a carpenter in your cycle. And then keep getting those carpenters until you're on a fresh cycle. And then because you'll be on a fresh cycle, you can then board the barriers that were breached so that you're not getting carpenters anymore. And you will then be on a perfect drop cycle from there on out. So let's say you figure out your cycle because you got like a nuke, an insta-kill, then immediately after the insta-kill you got another insta-kill, and then a double points. That would mean you are 50% of the way through your cycle. This would mean if you had a drop cycle like this, all you would need is 2 carpenters in order to fix your drop cycle in order to be on a perfect drop cycle again. And to try and explain it, it's because after that first insta-kill, you got a second insta-kill. You can only have one of every drop in your cycle before you move on to the next cycle. So you cannot have 2 repeats in the same cycle. So that second insta-kill is a guaranteed indicator of a brand new drop cycle. It is the start of a new drop cycle. Which means if you were on an insta-kill, double points, and those were your last 2 drops of the round, if you were on a 4 drop cycle at this point, you would guarantee have a nuke and a max ammo. Not particularly in that order, they could come in a max and a nuke, or a nuke and a max. But they would be the only 2 drops that would come first. And so what you would do is you would breach the barriers so that you had 5 active barriers in order to allow carpenters to spawn immediately. Which means at this point you would have a nuke, max, and a carpenter in your cycle. Meaning that those are now the 3 drops that you can get. And then the 4th drop you would get could be any one of the 5 that was mentioned before. And then once more, you would want to make sure that your barriers are breached so that you can get carpenters on the next round, because you would get one of every drop except the last drop of the previous round. And then once you've done that on those 2 rounds, you can then just play no carpenters for the rest of the time and you'll be on a perfect drop cycle. And it is ridiculously useful on this map. I cannot stress it enough. The reason being, you know that trade I did on 89 where I took the down? Well, on Shang, if you play without carpenters, you can actually go all the way until about round 110 without having to trade. But that's only really possible if you're on a perfect drop cycle. But anyway, back to my game now. I managed to get the baby gun back after 11 hits of the box, which was honestly really cool. However, my drop cycle was not being very kind to me in this game, and I already had to do another trade on round 91. Something to note when you do trades on Shangri-la is you want to make sure you damage the horde before you run to like a box location, because if you don't damage every zombie, any zombies that aren't damaged will have a tendency to respawn when you go too far away. Now, I'm not sure every map that this applies to, but I know that it applies to Moon, Call of the Dead, and Shang. And so before every trade I did in this game, I would throw a Semtex on the ground in order to damage the horde, and then go to wherever the box location was and start trading. And after this trade, I got very lucky because I only had to do another 11 hits in order to get the baby gun again. It was super, super nice. And now, at the time, I wasn't feeling too great about this game. I had like no more revives left. I had to play super, super safe. But thankfully, the game was really kind to me, giving me a max ammo when I needed it. And so I managed to play with this baby gun until round 97. And being able to do this meant that I only had to do one more trade in order to get to round 100. Because on either 98 or 99, I would have been guaranteed a max ammo. And I would have had an unpapped baby gun for the beginning of round 98. So either way, I would have had more than enough ammo to get myself all the way to round 100. But I just needed this last baby gun.
What did he just say? Dude, I called it! I fucking called it!
And what an insane baby gun trade it was. Because as soon as I shot my last baby gun bullet, I traded it out for the M16 on the wall. I then went to the box, which was at the AK location, hit the box once, and got the baby gun back in a one-hit trade. I could not have asked for a better trade. So I finished round 97 off with a non-papped baby gun, got myself to round 98, managed to get a max ammo with the non-papped baby gun, and got myself to round 99 in no time at all. And then with having almost 40 bullets with my fully papped baby gun, I managed to clear round 99, and I managed to get to round 100 on my very first attempt on Shangri-la.
Ah! Oh my good lord. Chat. There it is. Let's go! Shang done on my first attempt.
I definitely had some very mixed emotions about this game. It was a pretty rough one, to be honest. But yeah, I managed to get it done.
13-hour split from what I wanted. It was almost 30,000 kills.
Come on, QED! What the f? So, next up on the list was BO1 Moon. And to go from a map where the drop cycle is quite important to a map where you really do not give a shit about your drops as long as you get one is actually quite nice. And the start on Moon is very different to all the other maps because you spawn in on no man's land with no round number in the bottom left corner. So I would start my game off by just staying in no man's land until I got enough points to get Juggernog. I would then buy Juggernog and then teleport into the spawn room on Moon and then go from there. I would then spend the first 3 rounds in spawn, then I would open up to the MPL, buy the MPL, spend the round in there, then go all the way through to power, switch the power on, and then spend the next few rounds actually in Tunnel 11. And Tunnel 11 is actually going to be one of the places where I spend most of my time on this map, because Tunnel 11 has the fastest spawns on the map, but it's actually not where you want to play the low rounds, at least not the way I played Moon. But I would stay in Tunnel 11 until I got a decent amount of points, at least enough to buy the bowie knife off the wall. I would then go and buy the bowie knife off the wall, knife for a couple of rounds until I got about like 4,000 to 5,000 points. Then open up to the next place, wherever the box was really. I would then hit the box for like any kind of points weapon, and then once I had that, I would then go back to no man's land to Pack-a-Punch. This is because I would just use any points weapon that I got and killed a bunch of zombies in no man's land in order to get enough points to Pack-a-Punch my starting pistol and the weapon I came in with, in order to get even more points and to be able to buy Speed Cola while I was there. And then by the time I got back to Moon, I have about like 10,000 points. However, in my first game, I didn't get that many points when I came back from Pack-a-Punch. So I spent a lot of time just getting a few points in like Tunnel 11. Not the side where you'll be seeing me spend most of my time. It was actually on the other side where Stamina Up and Semtexes are. I would then play by Stamina Up for a few rounds in order to get about 15,000 to 20,000 points. And then a few rounds later, I would try and save a zombie in order to move the box to spawn. During this process though, I actually managed to get the wave gun from the box, which is really good, but kind of really bad. And this was because I didn't have Gershes before I had the wave gun. And because I have the wave gun and Mustang and Sally's, I don't really want to trade either of those weapons. So in order to try and hit for Gershes, I would basically be slow hitting the box, basically hitting the box, potentially hacking the box, and then just letting the weapon go back down in the box before I hit it again, instead of taking the weapon, which is unbelievably faster. But yeah, all you have to do in order to guarantee that the box moves to spawn is to hack the other 2 box locations where the box isn't at, then move the box from where it is currently, and that will guarantee move it to spawn. And then, since I'm not very lucky on this map most of the time, what I would do is I will then go around a few rounds later after I've gotten like 30 to 40,000 points. I'll go around the map and hack every single box location other than spawns, and that will basically allow the box to always stay in spawn for at least 2 rounds. Because when you hack every other box location, the box literally just cannot move. But before I even bothered running around the map, hacking every box location, I decided to trap the astronaut in the other side of Tunnel 11, the stamina side. This is because the astronaut is a major pain in the ass, because the health of the astronaut keeps going up and up, and the wave gun can't kill it, which means in the higher rounds, you basically have no way of killing the astronaut other than with QEDs, which isn't really what you want to use. And that's because Gershes are just infinitely better for getting drops from zombies. And so the best option for me was to just trap the Astro on the other side of Tunnel 11. Now, I do know that there is a glitch with trapping the astronaut in the biodome. However, that isn't considered legitimate by the majority of the high round zombies community, so I just didn't bother doing that. So in order to trap him, I just needed 2 things. 1, Tunnel 11 excavator to go off, and 2, the astronaut in Tunnel 11. And so as the excavator was going off, the astronaut spawned on one of the rounds. I would then save like 1 zombie at the end of a round to make things easier for me. And then when the excavator had about 15 seconds left before it closed down on Tunnel 11, I would exit the room and the astronaut would basically be trapped in there for the rest of the game. So on round 21, I would run around the map hacking every box location, and then go straight to Pack-a-Punch to upgrade my wave guns. But during hacking the box locations, I was fortunate enough to get Gershes from hacking the box location in Biodome, so I didn't need to bother hacking the rest of the boxes. And so I ended up ending round 21 before Pack-a-Punching, and then I would spend the first 45 rounds in Spawn Room. To be honest, Moon has one of the more chill early round strats, because you can pretty much just spam your wave gun whenever zombies get close to you, and once you're running out of ammo, you just throw a Gersh device on the ground, and as long as you get a drop, you can hack that drop into a max ammo. So that's what I did until round 46, and then at this point the strategy would change. I would make sure I had the horde of zombies while I was in spawn, and then I would slowly make my way to MPL and get the horde up again there, because when the zombies are out in space, they kind of spread out a lot. But anyway, once they were nice and merged together in MPL, I would take them through Tunnel 6 and just out into space, the space area by power. And then as I was making my way down the stairs, I would then shoot the horde of zombies with the wave gun. And there's actually a bit of a delay from when you shoot the wave gun to when the zombies actually die. But this works out in my favor, because it gives me enough time to run all the way over to the other side of the stairs, go up those stairs and into Tunnel 11. And just as I'm getting into Tunnel 11, the zombies will then start dying, and the zombies will then start respawning, and because Tunnel 11 is just a 2 spawn, the zombies will only spawn from the barrier in front of me, and then the roof spawn just to the right of the barrier. But some of you astute viewers might be remembering, well, I excavated Tunnel 11, so there's no air in this room anymore. And that's completely right, Because at the end of the day, I want to keep the hacker in order to flip my drops. And I know I could go and run and grab the hacker every single time, but that would be like a major time waste. But the way the strategy works, you never actually die to the lack of oxygen. And this is because you have just enough time to shoot a wave gun shot in the barrier and then shoot the zap guns at the remaining zombies coming from the drop down just before you run out of oxygen. And so you can just head to the doorway, get your oxygen refill there. You literally only need to spend a split second in the doorway and then go straight back in the room so that the spawn control still works, and then repeat the process. It's actually super simple. It's really not that risky either. And yeah, it's just a really cool strategy. And because you're choking because of the lack of oxygen, the high round community decided to call this strategy the BDSM strat. And what I would do is I would spend my time running this strategy until I ran out of ammo to 4 and 0 in my wave gun. At this point, after I shot my last shot, I would then immediately start running all the way back to the spawn room. I would then do some cutbacks in the spawn room if I needed to in order to get the full horde, and then I would throw a Gersh and then throw another Gersh if I got a drop immediately after, so I could hack the drop without any interruptions from zombies. If I didn't get a drop though, I would then just have to do another horde up in the spawn room and then use another Gersh in order to try and get a drop again. But after I'd hacked my drop into a max ammo, I would do what I initially did, which is get the horde in the spawn room, take them around to MPL, through the tunnel, and down the stairs slightly, shoot them with the wave gun, and then go back into tunnel 11 and repeat the strategy. And this worked great, until I didn't get a drop on round 65. Well, to be more precise, I didn't get a drop with my 3 Gershes. I managed to somehow kill a few zombies with my Mustang and Sally, and then I finished the rest of the zombies off with the wave gun. But because I wasn't really anticipating a drop, I forgot to board the barrier where I was killing the zombies close to, and I ended up just picking up the drop.
Ooh, hello. Wait. Wait. That's huge. No, you little shits. Fuck! I wasn't expecting to be able to get it, man.
But this gives me a good time to explain how I would do trades on this map. So initially, I would start off in the spawn room and then go into MPL and throw a Semtex grenade on the ground to damage the zombies, because as I mentioned on the Shangri-la portion of the video, the zombies need to be damaged, otherwise they will respawn around the areas when you're trying to hack the box locations. Now, I do want to mention something real quick for anybody who is looking to get to like insta-kill rounds or maybe round 200 on this map. Do not use Semtex grenades in order to damage the horde if you are looking to get to round 163 plus, full stop. This is because if you damage zombies with the Semtex grenades, I believe every single zombie that is damaged by the Semtex grenade counts towards the box error, so it kind of like counts as a hit towards the box in a sense. And after between 3,000 to 4,000 box hits, your game will basically crash. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going for those very high rounds, to just shoot them with an MPL or any other bullet weapon. But since I was only going for 100, it didn't really matter, so I didn't really care, and I just used Semtex grenades. But anyway, once I damaged them in the MPL room, I would then run straight to the first box location, which is a power. I would then hack the box and run up the stairs to tunnel 11. This was just so I could quickly catch my breath in the air duct, and then I would run back down the stairs, see what I got out of the box, and if it was QEDs, I would then go to the box and pick them up. If not, I would basically go to the right hand side, go up the stairs to double tap, and then go to my next box location. And the next box location you want to go to is just on the outside by the teleporter. Then after hacking that box location, you would then want to make your way into the biodome and hack that box location. And then once you've hacked that box location, you can then make your way back into spawn in order to hit the box to try and get QEDs to then get Gersh's back. And this is basically what's known as a Gersh trade. And on round 65, I could not have gotten luckier because I ended up getting QEDs on my very first hacked box hit. And then when I went into the biodome, I ended up getting my Gersh's back.
Wow.
So I did something a little bit unorthodox. I basically got the horde up in biodome, threw a Gersh device down, and I ended up getting a fire cell, which I immediately hacked, and I was basically fine at that point. I then went back into spawn to get the horde up, and started running the strategy like normal again. However, normally what you would do, because you won't be getting QEDs that often, you would go into spawn and hit for QEDs, you would then wait for the zombies to come back, and once you have QEDs, I would personally go back into the MPL room to throw the QED. And this is because the QEDs actually have a potential to kill the zombies. But they also have a potential to blow your windows out in spawn if you throw them in spawn. And that's because they can spawn a lure in that will do a 360-degree spin and shoot rockets all over the place. But anyway, after I would throw the QEDs out, if I got a drop, fantastic. That would allow me to hack that drop, get a max for my wave gun, and then I would stay in spawn while doing full hordes, killing zombies, while also hitting the box for my Gersh device back. But if I threw all three and didn't get a drop, I would just go back into spawn, have the full horde on me, and keep hitting the box until I got my Gershes back. And if you want to, you can trade out your wave gun, but it honestly isn't really advised. I do it sometimes just because I feel like my luck would be better with the wave gun. Spoiler, it didn't turn out to be that way. My luck getting the wave gun back was horrible. Just don't trade out the wave gun. Up until round 84, things were looking pretty good. I had a QED average of 20 and a Gersh average of 7, so I only had to do about 3 trades, which, to be honest, is actually kind of unlucky, because that means on those 3 rounds I threw 3 Gershes, killing a total of 72 zombies, and didn't get a single drop from that. But hey, it is what it is. Unfortunately though, on round 84, I end up playing very stupidly, and I also got kind of unlucky because I was on a red screen. I'd just gotten some air, I came back out, and I ran into a zombie. I did shoot my zap gun at him, like my reticle was actually on the zombie when I shot, but apparently it missed or failed or something, and the zombie slapped me and I ended up going down. And for those of you who are wondering how I managed to get quick revive as my 4th perk when earlier on in the game it was PhD, you can actually hack any perks you don't want away, and as long as you have less than 4 perks, you can then buy another perk back. And so when I went to do my trade on 73, I hacked my PhD away and I bought quick revive back. But anyway, after my down, I went to No Man's Land and got my perk. Unfortunately, it was Speed Cola and not Juggernog, but Speed Cola is quite nice because it increases your hacking speed. However, when I needed my drops, things didn't go too well. This is because I didn't get a drop until my 3rd Gersh, and after I'd thrown my 3rd Gersh, there was a zombie that had just jumped up from underneath the spawn room, and because I had to waste time shooting him with one of my zap guns, I couldn't get the hack off in time before the horde actually surrounded me, and because of this, I ended up having to do a trade. However, this trade didn't go very well at all, and this was because instead of using a Semtex grenade or shooting the zombies in the spawn room, I shot them in the MPL room. And because I no longer had stamina, when I ran to the first box location, went up the stairs and back down, the zombies were already there and I had to shoot them. And this meant as I was running up the stairs past double tap and trying to go back all the way through to biodome, there were zombies at the very top of the stairs just by the MP5K, and they were all just trapping me. I only had like 1 wave gun bullet left. I used it and there were still more zombies coming from there, and I end up taking another down. And at this point, I just wasn't really thinking straight. I messed up big time. I went outside, hacked the box, and I didn't really have enough time to make it back into the biodome, and I ended up choking to death. Yep, there you go. And this was the first time I'd actually failed on a BO1 map past round 50, at least during this challenge. So in the next game of Moon I played, I did a couple of things a little differently. First things first is at the beginning of the game, I tried to get a little bit lucky. And what I decided to do is once I had QEDs, I would then go to Stamina Up after I'd bought Juggernog, Speed Cola, PhD and Quick Revive, and try and get Stamina Up as my 5th perk. This is because when you throw a QED device at a perk you don't have, you actually have a chance of getting that perk. And that's exactly what happened on round 18 in my game.
Believe in you.
Yes! Yes! And the only other change I made in my game is instead of damaging them in MPL, I would now from here on out damage them in the spawn room to give me more time to hack the box location in power so I don't end up getting trapped or having to shoot my wave gun. And thanks to these changes, I had no trouble at all getting back to where I was, and it was time to play the rest of the game. Unfortunately for me though, this game look-wise did not go very well at all. In fact, this might be the most unlucky game of Moon I think I might have ever played. And this is because not only did I have a 31 hit average on the QED devices and a 14.5 hit average on the Gersh device to round 99, I also had almost 400 box hits to round 100. And for those of you who don't know, really you only want to have a couple of trays to round 100 in a normal like high round game. Anywhere from 3 to 6 for me is about relatively normal. And I believe in this game I had 9 trades to round 100 in this game, which is absolutely abysmal. But all in all, I did manage to get to 100 on my second attempt, which isn't bad at all. I was slightly disappointed because Moon is one of the maps I've played more than any other map on BO1, at least recently. But to get it in 8 hours and 50 minutes with how bad my box look was, and how bad my drop look was, it wasn't bad at all, and I was still on pace with every single map I've played so far really. But that was all about to change with the next map on the list. Now, when I first started Verruckt, I'll be honest, I thought this map was going to be kind of a breeze. The strategy for high rounds on this map honestly didn't seem that difficult to me. I know I've gotten to 100 a couple of times in the past on this map, so I honestly thought I could probably bang this out as long as I get the early rounds done, because the early rounds are pretty rough on Verruckt, I'll be honest. But the high round strat always seemed relatively easy to me. But because it had been so long since I'd actually gotten to round 100 on this map, and since I'd really played it, I struggled. I struggled a lot on this map. But the interesting thing was, although I was struggling on this map, I was also learning quite a lot about it, which I'll get into at the right parts. But to start off with, like most of the other maps, I would begin by staying in the spawn room until round 4 or 5, and then make my way all the way through to power, and then hit the box. And then after hitting the box, I would then go into the speed cola room, and at the end of each round I would basically hit the box once and then go back into the speed cola room in order to just manipulate the spawn so that they only came out of those 2 barriers. But in my first game I didn't really do that. I just went straight to the box location and hit the box, and within like 3 hits of the box I managed to get the ray gun, which is unprecedented. But since I had the ray gun, I would then just be waiting in the speed cola room until I could afford speed cola, and then I didn't buy jug and double tap until round 11, but once I had, I'd also bought bouncing betties and then went straight back into the speed cola room killing zombies. but I still didn't have everything I needed for the early game out of the box, so at the end of each round I would hit for a bullet weapon and monkey bombs. And at the end of round 12 I was lucky enough to get a Galil, and then at the end of round 13 I managed to get monkey bombs, which meant I had a first box set of Verruckt. Now, normally I would struggle quite a lot on the early rounds of Verruckt, but this time for some reason I was actually doing alright. And the way I would play the early rounds, until about round 28 I would basically throw monkeys and shoot the zombies with the ray gun. I would also, like in the early to mid 20s, place a bouncing Betty as the monkey was about to explode in order to do some extra damage to the zombies. And it's kind of just relying on drop luck in order to get like max ammos and insta-kills and stuff. But on Verruckt, you're in a 2 spawn location, there are no fire cells even if you move the box on Verruckt. So you're on a 4 drop cycle. You can get on perfect cycle if you get lucky enough, but I wasn't. But insta-kills carry a lot in this place because, again, it's only a 2 spawn, which means you're constantly able to kill the zombies as they're spawning in on an insta-kill. And so in no time at all, I managed to get to round 28, and this is when I could start playing things a little bit more carefully. So from round 28 onwards, what I would do is I would start rounds off at the speed cola window. I would keep it boarded as much as I could. Then as the zombies from the kitchen window started running towards me, I would then do a cutback around the speed cola side, go back to the window, do another cutback there, and then go around to the other side close to kitchen, then do another cutback there. By the time I've done that, I should have the full horde behind me, which is what happened in most cases. Well, not just most cases, it's what happened in all cases. And so once I had this horde, I would then place a bouncing Betty down and then shoot them with the ray gun to finish them off. And if I didn't have any Betties, I would just use the ray gun to kill them. And in most of my attempts, honestly, you can basically do this until about round 40 with relatively no issues. Sometimes you might not get lucky enough and you might have to leave on like a 37, but most of the time I was able to make it to round 40. And so from round 40 all the way to round 100, you would basically do one single strategy. And the strategy I would be doing in this case is called Black Ops strategy because the strategy was created by a player named Mr. Black Op. And believe it or not, this strategy has been around for almost 10 years now. So the basis of this strategy is you would start in the kitchen, you would then make your way round to either speed cola or double tap, whichever trap is available at the time. So initially you'd go the speed cola way, then you would basically do a little cutback towards the trap in order to slow the zombies down a little bit, especially on like the 40s and 50s. You would then go to the other side of the trap and switch it on, running the zombies through the trap. Then you would jump back through the trap once you've killed all the zombies that were going through the trap, and then make your way back through the kitchen, going in the opposite direction, making sure you do a cutback in the power room, and then doing cutbacks along the way all the way until you pass through to where the MP40 wallby is, right next to double tap. And then you'll just want to stall the zombies a little bit with the MP40 to make sure that they're all nice and grouped together. And then you'll want to slowly make your way back up, but on the other side of the wall. And as you get to the end where the doorway is, you want to switch the trap on and immediately sprint back to the kitchen. And then at that point, you just repeat the strategy until you get to round 100. So all in all, it sounds pretty easy. However, on round 63, I got a little bit too close to the zombies while stalling them, and they didn't really stall like they were kind of meant to, and I ended up taking it down. Thankfully, the recoveries for the most part are actually quite easy to do on Verruckt, so I would just run down, grab Juggernog and quick revive, and then as I make my way back while running the strategy, I would pick up double tap and speed cola. And for the next few hours, I'm running the strategy perfectly fine, But then on round 77, I unfortunately take my second down of the game, and it's because I get stuck on a zombie that came from the double tap window. So at that point, I got off for the day, and I decided to come back on the following day to try and get a few more rounds in. Unfortunately though, only 1 hour into the broadcast, I end up taking probably the dumbest down I've ever taken while doing this challenge. Because what had happened is I had paused for about a minute or two, and I'd basically forgotten which way I was going while I was in the kitchen, and I went the wrong way, basically getting stuck between 2 different hordes of zombies, and I just went down. And then not even 30 minutes later, I end up fully dying out in my game around 85, almost 8 hours into the game, because I got one very unlucky spawn. As I was about to make my way through into the power room, I end up getting a zombie spawn in the power room a little bit too early, and it ended up just cutting me off and killing me. So I ended up having to restart, and I would basically play the same as I did last time, only this time I didn't get as lucky with the box, because it took me all the way until like round 20 or 21 just to get my ray gun this time. But I managed to camp with relative ease, and I was running the high round strategy once again from round 40 onwards. But on round 59, I had a very close encounter. I got incredibly unlucky with my spawns here, getting like 2 zombies on the other side of the wall already, with another 3 coming through the doorway as I was passing it over at double tap side, and it basically forced me to throw a monkey immediately. Now, I wasn't sure at the time whether you could throw a monkey through the window. Apparently you can, according to a few friends of mine, but at the time I was kind of panicked, and I just threw my first monkey at the ground, which meant I needed to throw my second monkey and get the zombies far enough away so that I could escape, and I just about managed to do it. But this stroke of luck wouldn't last very long, because on round 61 I end up taking it down, and that down basically led to my death. I once again got a series of very unlucky spawns, and due to also some bad decision making, I end up taking it down and not getting through any gaps. And then as I'm trying to recover, zombies are literally just everywhere. I try and throw a monkey, but I get double slapped, and I was basically dead. So for the rest of the day, I just spent it trying to get set up again, and for some reason I just all of a sudden started struggling with the low rounds again, and I just got off for the day and basically took a mental reset.
I actually just quit, bro. I can't be arsed.
So clearly something wasn't working here, and thankfully I had a player in my chat called Shangri-la. He's a really talented zombies player. He's got a couple of world records, and he gave me a bit of advice in the chat, and I also looked at some of Verruckt's gameplay from a previous world record he held. And so for the next game I played, I did things a little bit differently once I got into the higher rounds. So the first major thing I did was, instead of looking back at the zombies through the doorway at double tap and getting close to them there, I would go a little bit further back so I didn't get surprised by a zombie that jumps over the window behind the trap barrier. This basically meant I was avoiding any downs that could potentially happen there. And the second major change I did, that was thanks to the advice from Shangri-la and watching a bit of Verruckt's gameplay, is that after I had killed with the speed cola trap, I would then make my way back just to the outskirts of the speed cola room, stay there for a couple of seconds until the zombies got to me, then start slowly walking back through the speed cola room to the hand grenade, and then go into the kitchen. And now this might seem like a very small and somewhat insignificant change, but this one singular change made the map so much easier, to the point where you could probably do it with your eyes closed. So how did walking for like 5 seconds manage to change a map from having some of the most irregular spawns to basically having some of the best spawn control in the game. And the way spawn control works for the most part is whenever zombies are being killed, the area you're in and the areas adjacent to where you're in is where the zombies can spawn. And so because most of the time when the zombies from the trap, after I'd already brought a horde through, because I was in the kitchen at the time they were being killed in my previous attempts, they would spawn in the speed cola room and the kitchen and the power room. And so when I died on round 85, there must have been a zombie that died just as I entered kitchen, and that zombie ended up respawning in the power room, which basically led to him spawning very early and me getting killed by him. But now that I'm going around speed cola slower, that means that those zombies that die pretty quick are now respawning either in kitchen, in speed cola, or back by the trap, which has like 3 different spawn zones. And this pretty much meant I didn't have to worry about that one spawn in power anymore. And also because I was taking it slower, it also meant any later respawns that died by the trap wouldn't be all around me in double tap anymore. This one singular change just made everything run so much smoother. And just to be on the safe side with the power spawn, I would go to the very back of the kitchen area as I was shooting the zombies, just to ensure that there were no like surprise spawns there, because when you're at the very back by the doorway, you can just about see where the zombies jump over the barrier. But yeah, that was just a little bit of added caution. And thanks to these extra changes I had made, I managed to get to 92 without taking a single down. However, on round 92, I end up letting myself get distracted a little bit by reading chat, and because of this, I don't go through the speed cola trap fast enough, and I don't have a sense of urgency to get to the speed cola room, and I get cut off by a bunch of zombies. I try and wrap back around, but there's zombies everywhere, and I end up downing. Not only that though, I'm down to my last monkey at this point, and I throw it and I almost die as I'm throwing the monkey because again, there's zombies everywhere. Thankfully though, I managed to recover and I get back to running the strategy like normal, which was until round 96, in which I took the biggest L during this challenge so far. Because what had happened is I got some of the craziest spawns I've ever seen on this map while running this strategy.
I get from, yeah, this window. Oh my, there's still more? Oh, bro. Are you joking?
Normally when you're running the strategy, you'll get 1 or 2 spawns from the speed cola trap window. However, I got so unlucky as to get 6 zombies in that window. And now 3 of them had already come through the trap, and so they went back through the trap when I was on the side with the trap switch on it. But that left me with 3 of them still. And as I tried to jump past them, one of the zombies decided to do a little sidestep because the pathing in that corner is horrendous and it just cuts me off from being able to get past it. And now with no more monkeys and the trap being on, I can't escape the room, I can't recover, and I'm just dead. And just like that, I'd lost 11 hours of progress. And this is why I added a limit of 12 hours for my maps. Because if I played a map like Nacht, for example, that takes 24 hours to complete, and I were to fail the map like 3 times at 20 hours, that'd be 60 hours of time lost. And I'm on a bit of a time limit before the release of Black Ops 6. But anyway, this was a super demotivating loss for me. Round 96 is one of the biggest fails I've ever had while going for round 100 on any map. But anyway, the following day I start up another game of Verruckt. However, this time I end up taking it down on round 38. Just after I stopped camping because I got very unlucky with my drop cycle. But this down was very stupid. I don't really know what I was trying to do. I just wanted to kill the zombies with the ray gun at the end of the round, and I underestimated how many zombies were left in the round, and yeah, just ended up dying because of my own stupidity. However, in my 96th death, I did end up learning something, and I figured out a way to counteract how I ended up dying in that game. So the reason I actually ended up dying on 96 was, yes, I got unlucky with spawns, but the reason those spawns happened was because of what happened at the double tap trap about 20 to 30 seconds before. So what had happened is I had a late spawn, unfortunately, from double tap side, and that zombie kind of caught me in the middle of the double tap trap. Now, I didn't end up going down from the double tap trap, which was fine, but because I got stunned by the trap, it basically made it so that the spawns were all kinds of whack. Because normally, you're in kitchen by the time the zombies start respawning, but when you get caught in the trap, you actually just end up activating a bunch of different spawns. And I guess one of the spawns that was activated were the ground spawns at the bottom by double tap. And what's really interesting about this is I asked a couple of people, and we all kind of thought that once a zombie has chosen a window to go through, or a barrier to go through, they will stick to that barrier. But on Verruckt, that doesn't seem to be the case, because in this game at some point, I actually had a look when this happened, and what the zombie ended up doing is he was going to the double tap trap barrier, but instead he went down the stairs and decided to come up to the speed cola trap barrier. And so what probably happened, I must have got like 6 spawns or something down on the ground, and then those zombies, instead of jumping through that barrier, they must have just changed their mind at last minute and then went all the way down the stairs and back up the stairs to the speed cola barrier and got at me through there. And after I'd watched this back, I came up with an idea of doing a little cutback in the speed cola room itself in order to make up enough time so that I wouldn't get caught out by those zombies. And the reason for this is because I would be getting less spawns in general, which means there'd be less spawns in the speed collar room, and this is because obviously the spawns are messed up from not getting into the spawn control in time, but because there's less zombies spawning in the speed collar room, it gives me ample time to do a cutback around the barrier. And the best thing about this is this actually happened in my final attempt on the map, and it worked perfectly exactly how I'd imagined. And so in this attempt, even though I went down on round 38, I played the rest of the game completely flawless and got to round 100 in a little over 12 hours.
Chad? This is it? This is fucking it, boys! Yes! Finally! Oh my god, finally! After so many fails.
And I know I said I'd be doing maps that take 12 hours or less, but this is close enough. However, this did mark the first major time loss in the run in general, because I had estimated that this map would take me about 28 hours in total, like including fails and stuff, but unfortunately it ended up taking me 38 hours. The interesting thing with this map though is, normally playing this map I'm very bored, but with all these kind of little intricacies, it actually made me appreciate and enjoy the map a lot more, even though I died on 96. Like, in this game, I felt that I could probably play all the way until 200. But that was the end for the Asylum map, at least for now on Black Ops 1, and it was time to go to the swamp. Solid 35.6 SPH, Kappa. Oh my... So, the swamp started off in pretty much the same manner as all the other maps. I would stay in the spawn room. And this is because they would open the gate to the fishing hut, but the door all the way at the back, they would actually leave closed. And you want double tap behind that. However, this is if you want to run the drop down strategy, which I had no intention of running in this game, because I was going to run the zip and dip strategy. And when running the zip and dip strategy, it's actually better to have the fishing hut door open, and it's far better to have the doctor's quarters door closed, and this is because of some kind of dodgy spawns later on. So, some of you might be wondering, how do you know if double tap's behind the door? Because you can't see the perk until it's spawned in. Well, there are a couple of little tricks to determine which perk is actually behind the doors. The first trick, and this will only apply to quick revive, is there are little sparks coming out from the bottom of the quick revive machine, and you can see these sparks through the doors. And this is even when the perk isn't spawned in. So if you look behind the door and you see sparks at the bottom right hand corner, where quick revive would be, then it is quick revive behind that door. Now, the other two that you don't want, which would be Juggernog and Speed Cola behind the door, these are a little bit trickier to spot. And so what you'll be watching me look out for here is I'm going to be shooting on this kind of top line area and trying to get it right in the middle where the perk would be. And this is because double tap is a shorter perk machine compared to Speed Cola and Juggernog. And what will happen is if I shoot this top line and there are sparks flying out, that means that it is either Juggernog or Speed Cola. But if I shoot the top line and there are no sparks flying out, then that means that it is double tap and I'm good to go. And luckily for me, it only took me like a few restarts, like maybe 3 or 4, in order to get my first double tap machine behind there. So I got incredibly lucky and managed to get a game going straight away. Well, that wasn't completely true, as I still had to get the Wonderwaff and monkeys at least from the box before I was actually fully set up. Because if the box actually goes to the doctor's quarters before I manage to get the Wonderwaff, since there are no fire sales on the map, there would be no way for me to get the Wonderwaff, so it would be a restart. But to my surprise, my very first box hit, although it wasn't the Wonderwaff, I did get the ray gun, which is actually really helpful during the early rounds. So that was a really nice surprise to get. But anyway, I would play behind the flogger until I had about 4,000 to 5,000 points, and then I would make my way through the comms room and check what perk I got first. And in this case it was actually Speed Cola, which isn't bad at all. Then after I had played a few rounds in the comm room and amassed a few thousand points, I would then make my way through to storage, and this is where I was greeted by quick revive, unfortunately. So this meant I actually had to open up the fishing hut. Now I know that earlier on I said that it doesn't really matter about opening up fishing hut, but it is actually preferable, I think, for the early rounds to keep the fishing hut closed so that you can use the full area behind the flogger without worrying about any spawns coming from that area. And this is because, unlike some other high round players who would like camp the comm room, I'm not that comfortable playing there, so I like to play behind the flogger. And since it's only for like the first 45 to 50 rounds, it's not that much time lost, so I don't really mind it. But anyway, I opened up fishing hut door and welcomed Jug with open arms as I was shitting myself a little bit. And so on round 12, I decided to hit the box and try and get the Wonderwaff, which I actually managed to do on only the 3rd hit of the box. Dude. Now, this was absolutely incredible luck. But at this point, I was still missing 2 things. The first thing being monkeys, and the second thing actually being a speed weapon. And this is because a speed weapon is incredibly important for the strategy that I was going to be running, at least in my opinion. And thankfully, on round 14, I chased the box over to comm room, and I ended up getting monkeys and the ballistic knife. Oh, and something else to mention, There are no speed weapons on the wall on this map either, so unfortunately the only way to get one is from the mystery box. And although I did get the ballistic knives, I would have preferred something either like the Spectre or the dual wield CZs. And this is because I am on the early round still, and because I do have a ray gun, I can get drops quite easily, and one of those drops could be an insta-kill. And since the ballistic knife isn't really that great of a weapon on insta-kills, I was trying to get something like the dual wield CZs or the Spectre, because they would be much better on insta-kills compared to the ballistic knife. As instead of using one of the speed weapons in order to kill on insta-kill rounds, because I had the ballistic knife, I would end up having to use the ray gun, which ends up wasting ammo, which could be used in order to force other drops. So after hitting the box a few more times, the box did eventually move, and unfortunately it moved to Doctor's Quarters, which meant I could no longer hit the box for a different speed weapon. And so it was now time for me to run the low round strategy, which basically just involved camping behind the flogger trap and switching it on when it was ready to be turned on. The only difference being from about round 25 to 30 onwards, I would start in this little area that was next to the flogger, and this would be just at the bottom of the outside set of stairs. And this basically makes it so that all the zombies spawn behind the flogger trap. It's basically a spawn control, and it's pretty cool. And so I would be starting my rounds off here, waiting for like 5 to 10 seconds for the zombies to spawn in, and then I would hit the flogger trap and sit behind it, and then just camp from there. And when I say camp, it's not really camping because I am obviously still having to train, but that's just the kind of term we use for like staying in one area. So I would be playing behind the flogger, and I would be doing this all the way up until round 45 to 50. And at this point, ammo was becoming a crazy big issue. It was getting really difficult to actually kill zombies with the ray gun. And so it was pretty much time to run the trap strategy. And like I said before, I wasn't running the traditional drop-down strategy that just involves using the flogger, and I was going to use the strategy that I created a few years back, which I named Zip and Dip. So there were two main reasons really why I decided to do this strategy. Number one is it gets quite boring running drop-down and just using one trap for me, so I like to be able to move around the full map and use different things. Keeps things a bit more fresh for me. And the second reason is just because I was the one who created the strategy, and I thought it would be cool to kind of show it off in like quite a big video series that I was doing, so yeah. So I would normally start this strategy off in much the same way I would start the early round strategy, which is standing at the bottom of the stairs for the spawn control and switch the flogger trap on. However, instead of just standing directly behind the trap and holding up the zombies there, I would then go to the back by the fishing hut itself, and this is just to make things a little bit easier on rounding up the zombies. And so once I start seeing zombies spawn in from the swamp area, I would start to slowly make my way back to the flogger. I would then go back up towards like the fence area, and then do another little cutback to the flogger switch itself. And this is where a very important little bit of tech comes into the flogger trap itself. So the flogger on Black Ops 1 is a very unique trap because each trap switch for the flogger, it has two different trap switches, they both have their own individual cooldowns. So for example, if you switch the flogger on from the front side of the gate, you cannot use that trap switch again for another 60 seconds or so once the trap is finished. However, you can immediately after use the other trap switch from the back side of the gate because it has its own individual cooldown. But something that's very interesting and very important for the zip and dip strategy is you have to wait until the first trap has completely stopped moving. And a way you can guarantee that the trap switch has stopped moving, other than visual confirmation, is you'll hear a little flip of a switch really kind of go off when it's fully stopped moving. And once it has fully stopped moving, that is when you want to switch the trap on, and I would then basically run through the trap and straight into Doctor's quarters in order to activate another spawn control. And the reason this is so important with the trap switch is if you don't wait for the trap to fully finish, even if it looks like it has, if it hasn't fully finished, by the time you make the loop back to the flogger trap, the other trap switch won't be ready, and they will have actually shared the same cooldown with each other. So instead of both trap switches having separate cooldowns, they will then be sharing the last trap switch cooldown that was used. So you want to make sure that you really do not fuck this up, because it will ruin the trap timings of the strategy. However, if you do fuck it up one time, it doesn't matter. You can then still go back to using both as long as you wait for the trap to finish. It's not like a game ending thing. If you do fuck it up once or twice, you can recover from it. It just means that for that loop, you are going to have to do it a little bit slower. But at this point, now I would be in Doctor's quarters. I would stay in the same position for a couple of seconds until I start seeing zombies spawn in, and then I would slowly make my way over to the Doctor's quarters door. Then once I've made my way pretty much all the way to the door, I would then cut back a little bit around the right hand side, and then do the same on the left hand side or through the middle, depending on the position of the zipline, because this is where things get pretty interesting again. This is because a few years ago, everybody was kind of strat testing on Shi No Numa because a new strategy called Turbo Strategy was found, which is a very kind of risky version of the strategy that I'm doing here. And what was found out is that instead of despawning, the zombies that are hit by the zipline are actually killed. So it's technically classed as a trap. And I think the common misconception is that the zipline would actually just despawn the zombies, much like the flinger on Call of the Dead. But it wasn't the case, and it actually kills the zombies. So it can be used as a trap, which is what I would be doing here. And so if the flogger was at the bottom of the swamp, I would make sure to get as many zombies on the zipline as possible and then activate it, and it would basically kill close to a full horde of zombies. However, if the zipline was at the top, I would then basically loop them round the back and go through this little area where the zipline stops, and after calling it down, I would then run through the zipline as it's coming down, like jump through, because it doesn't actually damage you. It will basically stun you for a few seconds, but thankfully it will actually end up killing all the zombies that were behind me, which is just really nice. And after this, regardless of which way I played with the zipline, I would make my way through to buy the Thompson ammo and then activate the trap switch and repeat the loop over and over again. So at this point you might be wondering why I bother going to the Thompson after every loop I make. But this is because for every loop you make running this strategy, you actually use up 3,000 points. Which means if I didn't do this, I would pretty much be broke in no time at all. So while running this strategy, you have to make sure that you are pretty much constantly making points so that you're able to make enough points for each loop you do of the strategy. And this can actually be quite tricky, because I actually ended up taking my first down on something like 56 in this first attempt, as I was making my way backwards through to the zipline area. And this is kind of necessary in order to make enough points so that you don't start losing points and you can actually maintain the same amount of points or even sometimes make just a little bit more. Pretty much when I started the strategy to round 70 in this game, I stayed between about 85 and 90,000 points. During this first attempt here, I did end up going down a second time on round 69. But yeah, the second down was a bit of carelessness, but since my first down, I'd actually lost my speed weapon, and so this meant I wasn't actually making my way through to the different traps very quickly, and it also might have been the reason I ended up getting caught here and not making it through this gap. And the unfortunate reason for why I had lost it was because my speed weapon was my mule kick weapon in this game. But thankfully I did manage to recover, but being on round 70 with only one more quick revive left and being not even halfway through the game, I was not feeling very confident. And also the lack of a speed weapon really didn't help things out at all. And so this was reflected with my third down on round 72, where I make the dumbest and riskiest decision I think I've ever made on this map, trying to hit the trap switch with a bunch of zombies there. I end up getting double slapped twice from two different zombies, which ended up leaving me on a red screen before I went through the trap, and I got quite unfortunate as one of the zombies didn't die by the trap immediately and snuck through and slapped me from behind, and this just led me to Alt F4 the game. I didn't feel confident that I would get 100 in that match, and I just thought it would be better if I played the next day, and that's what I did. I started up another game, and I absolutely grinded the fuck out of it, with this time just being slightly different, as I got the CZ75 dual wield as my speed weapon. This just allowed the early game to go a little bit more smoothly, and if I was to take any downs in this game, I wouldn't have to worry about losing my speed weapon, as it was not in my mule kick slot this time. I had that be my ray gun, because I would get rid of the ray gun anyway in the later rounds for the Thompson in order to make points. And I'll be honest, I absolutely cruised back to the spot I was at previously. I made it back to 72 with absolutely no downs whatsoever, and I was feeling great about this game. And to be honest, I was right to, because even from round 70 to 80 and 80 to 90, I was still feeling great. I still hadn't taken any downs, and rounds 90 to 100, although they took an insane amount of time, taking around a quarter of the entire match length, I did manage to get it done, and I did manage to complete Shi No Numa completely flawless. And I managed to do it in about 9 hours and 44 minutes. And finally, after all of my grinding, I was only left with one map left on Black Ops 1 Zombies, which is the Riese. Flawless 100 on Shi No. Let's go, man. Flawless. Oh, let's see, actually. There's one button on my case that controls the fans.
Oh my god, bro, please tell me you definitely know it's for the fans.
So, I was feeling really good after the Shi No Numa game, and I decided to jump straight into the Riese immediately after completing round 100 on Shi No. And much like all the other BR1 maps, I would start off by buying the starting weapon, in this case it's the Gewehr, and I would stay in the spawn room until the end of round 3. Then at the end of round 3, I would make my way into the Thompson room, buy the Thompson off the wall, and stay in there until the first dog round. Now, unfortunately, my first dog round was round 7, but at the same time, I did get a double points for round 6, so it wasn't all bad. So on this dog round, I needed to make my way through to power. Now, there was only one way for me to get to power, as I needed to keep the debris closed in the Thompson room for the strategy I was going to run. So I made my way through to power by going round through the trench gun area, and then up the stairs and dropping down to the power area. Then I would switch the power on and finish the dog round. Then I bought speed cola and went back into the Thompson room to camp there for a little bit again. At this point, I would also buy a mule kick when I could afford it, as I was going to run Mustang and Sally, ray gun, and the window off for the early rounds. But once my second dog round came around, I would go up to Juggernog by bouncing Betties and Juggernog, and then finish the dog round. I would also link up one of the teleporters, being the one closest to double tap. And now it was just a case of getting 3 things from the mystery box: the ray gun, the Wonderwaff, and monkeys, just like Shi No Numa. Now I did start hitting the box quite late, but it did take me all the way until the 3rd box location just to get the ray gun. Thankfully in this time though, I did manage to get monkey bombs as well. So now all that was left was the Wonderwaff, and this took a little while compared to like all my other games. I had to move the box a total of 7 times in order to get the Wonderwaff, and I didn't end up getting it until about round 24. And this might be one of the longest times it's actually taken me to get the Wonderwaff, at least on like BO1 Der Riese. But the important thing now is I was pretty much set up. I just had to go and link the other 2 teleporters and then just pack a bunch of my weapons. And now this is the part I'm normally worried about doing, which is the early game on Der Riese. And this is because in order to camp Thompson Room for quite a long time, you kind of need good drop luck, as well as just being able to play the map really well, which you can only get really with a lot of practice. So originally I was only going to camp till about like rounds 50 to 55, but I actually ended up going quite a bit longer. But the general premise in how to camp Thompson is you would switch the trap on whenever it's ready, and then shoot the Wonderwaff until you're low. Then once you're low on ammo, you would use your Mustang and Sally and the ray gun in order to help you force drops, also throwing monkeys every now and then as well. Another thing that you'll really want to do, especially if you want to camp for quite some time, is you want to stack bouncing Betties in 2 corners in the Thompson Room. And now this really helped me out, because on round 54, I was pretty much completely out of ammo in everything, but I had 2 sets of Betties stacked up in different areas of the room. Unfortunately, the first set of Betties didn't get me any drops, but on the second set of Betties, I did actually manage to get a max, and then this helped me get all the way to 55, which I believe was a dog round. Now, at this point, I believe my drop cycle was actually really good. I could get like 1 of every drop each round, basically being a perfect drop cycle. And so I thought, you know what, it's my first try on the map, why not try and push camping to as long as I possibly can. And this worked out incredibly well, because I somehow managed to camp all the way until round 64, which I believe is actually the longest I've ever been able to camp in the Thompson Room. And this meant that my time to round 64 was only 2 hours long. But now that the rounds were getting longer, I decided it was time for me to run the trap strat. And originally in this game, I was going to play it nice and safe, and I was going to run the KJ strategy. Now this involves pretty much starting off in the Thompson Room, killing the zombies in there at the beginning, shooting like 1 or 2 waff shots, then leaving the Thompson Room and running through spawn, switching on the trap at the trench gun area, and then making your way up all the way through double tap as fast as you can. Then you want to drop down and make your way through the shorter area back to the Thompson Room and switch the trap on, killing another horde. Now this is pretty slow compared to some other strategies, but it is very safe, and it probably would have only taken me about 8 hours to actually reach round 100. But on round 82, I thought, fuck it. This is the last map on BO1. Let me try and do trade strat. Because KJ strat was starting to get a little bit bored at this point, and I just thought, you know, let me try a fun strat that's very difficult and just see how it goes. And so once I'd used up all my Wonderwaff ammo, I would then trade it out at the box and try and get the Wonderwaff back. But you would also still be using the trap in order to kill the zombies, and so that's why this map is classed as a trap and trade map and not just either like a trade or trap map. However, things didn't go too well already when starting to run this trade strat, because not only did I not get the Wonderwaff back before the round ended, it was also dog rounds on round 83, meaning it would have been way better for me to keep the Wonderwaff and then traded out first on round 84. So this was a pretty big blunder on my part, but I still went ahead and continued doing the trade just until I got the Wunderwaffe back. Unfortunately, my first trade wasn't very good, and it took me anywhere from like 30 to 40 hits to actually get it back. But on round 84, I did get it back, and I just started camping in the Thompson room again, just like I did in the early rounds. But this time, when I ran out of ammo, I would either trade the Wunderwaffe away, or I would run the triple trap strategy, which just involves dropping down a double tap and switching the power trap on, which would kill the horde there, and then you would run back to Thompson room afterwards. And I would be doing this every time I had a chance of a dog round, because obviously you don't want to do a trade and then get the dog round and then you don't have a Wunderwaffe for the dog round. So anyway, on round 85, I had to do my second trade because the Wunderwaffe ammo really doesn't last that long on the Riese. And after how my first trade had been, I wasn't really expecting anything great here. But for whatever reason, the box blessed me with a 2-hit trade for the Wunderwaffe, and I was over the moon of it. And now this Wunderwaffe lasted all the way until 86, but I had to keep a hold of it because I did have dog rounds potentially on round 87. And it is a good job I kept the Waff because I did actually end up getting dogs on round 87. And thanks to this dog round, I then had full ammo in my Waff all the way until 88. In fact, probably about 3/4 of the way through round 88. And then that's when I had to do another trade. Though, with how good my last trade was, I was really expecting this trade to be probably anywhere from like 20 to 30 hits probably. And so, as I went back to the box location, running triple trap, I hit the box at power again, and I somehow managed to get a 1-hit trade for the Wunderwaffe out of this box. So I made my way back to the Thompson room and camped out the rest of the round. Though once again, this Waff didn't last long, and I had to do another trade on round 89. And after my last 2 trades only taking up 3 hits of the box, there was no way I was gonna get another good trade, right? But oh how wrong I was, as the box just gave me a 4-hit trade at power. And I just want to point out, this was my 4th Waff from this box location, which is absolutely insane. Like, I must have been blessed by the RNG gods in this game, and I'm so glad that I ended up running trade strat. But anyway, this Waff would take me to the end of round 89, and some part way through round 90, and then I had to run the triple trap strategy because I had a chance of dogs on round 91, which I unfortunately didn't get, so I still had to keep the Waff all the way until round 92. And then obviously the dogs gave me a max, so then it was on to round 93, I would use the Waff and then trade it out again. So after I'd used all my Waff ammo on round 93, I then hit the box again. And after just another 3 box hits, I got the Wunderwaffe back again, making it my 4th amazing trade and my 5th Waff from this box location. Now, unfortunately, my glee wouldn't last for too long, as I did end up taking it down on around 94. And I'll be honest, this down was very stupid. It's 100% my fault, and I don't know what I was thinking. So as I got up, I would throw a monkey and run immediately over to Jug, and then pretty much just run the trap strategy from there while picking up my perks along the way. And then I would go back to camping until I ran out of ammo, which I did eventually run out of ammo again on round 94. And finally the box location would move, and my good luck streak was pretty much over. And so from here to 100, I would end up trading another 3 times or so. And in about 7 hours and 13 minutes, I managed to reach round 100 on Black Ops 1 Der Riese, and that would be the end of all the Black Ops 1 100s. And I could not have asked for a better game of Der Riese than what I just played. It was absolutely phenomenal. And with BO1 out of the way, it was time to move over to Black Ops 2. That was really good. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. These videos take an insanely long amount of time to do and to make, because we have to record, well, I have to stream the gameplay, then have to record the voiceover, Lizard has to edit, all a major pain, but we do it so that we can get content like this out. I know this was a much longer video than the previous one, and that's because, you know, maps take different amount of time to explain and different things happen. But if you did enjoy it, please be sure to like, subscribe, share it with a friend. It means the world to me. And yeah, I will catch you guys later. Have a good one.